Hey everyone, this is Amber Key, and you're listening to a Bright Idea podcast, a show where I sit down with entrepreneurs to discuss the aha moments that launched their businesses. On today's episode, I spoke with Cornelius Weaver, the fund manager of the Baltimore Flip Fund, managed by the Lola Capital Group, a real estate investment firm on a mission to breathe new life into Baltimore's neighborhoods. With more than 15 years in construction management and engineering, Cornelius has overseen over $500,000 in commercial projects, everything from university buildings to hospitals. Alongside his wife and business partner, Ellena Weaver, he's spent the last 3 years in the residential space, flipping and restoring homes that had been sitting vacant and turning them into affordable, beautiful places for families to live. Together, they're not just building properties, they're building pathways to wealth and revitalizing communities one house at a time. Cornelius lives by the scripture, "To whom much is given, much is required." That principle guides both his work and his purpose, using what he's been given to create lasting impact in the city of Baltimore. In this episode, Cornelius and I discuss the transformative impact of real estate investing in Baltimore. We explore the vision for Lola Capital Group, focusing on eradicating vacancies, creating affordable housing, and building generational wealth. Cornelius shares insights into the challenges and successes of flipping homes, the importance of community impact, and the personal journey of working alongside his wife. Before we dive in, if you love what we're doing here at a Bright Idea Podcast, help us keep going. You can subscribe to this show to get notifications when new episodes drop. If you like what you hear, share the episode with someone who needs a little inspiration. And if you would like to support the show directly, you can donate to our Cash App at a Bright Idea Podcast. Lastly, if you're a business owner or a brand looking to connect with our growing audience, we'd love to collaborate with you. You can sponsor an ad within one of our episodes or sponsor an entire episode. Just reach out to us to learn more. Now let's get into it. Here's my conversation with Cornelius Weaver, founder of the Lola Capital Group. All right, so Cornelius Weaver, we are here with the Lola Capital Group rather. How are you doing today?
I always like to say I am blessed and busy. Today's it's been a good day. You know, a little bit of work stuff, a little bit of dad stuff, marriage stuff, wellness, you know. But
Yeah, no, that is definitely the life of an entrepreneur. But I always love to ask, like, would you rather be super busy or do you need a moment? Like, is this too much for you?
ooh, I think you know what's the cool thing about it is you get to be busy on all the stuff that you want to occupy, right? All the stuff that you like doing. So because this is a fairly like new space for my wife and I, we are always like evolving with our schedules. Like, ooh, should we be working more on this right now? Like, should we be doing more marketing, more finances? Should we be, you know, out on the field, you know, with the team or operations side? Like, it could be a number of different things, but yes, I would solely rather be busy. Have a full schedule, just busy with the things that we love to do. Yep.
Yeah, and I think that speaks so much towards being an entrepreneur, but also being an entrepreneur in the early stages where like you're wearing a bunch of different hats. And so one day you're focused on the marketing piece, but then the sales might need some more attention. Or one day you're focusing on the outreach, but then marketing needs more attention. Like you're always juggling a bunch of things. So spoken like a true entrepreneur, honestly.
I know I said today was pretty cool. We got the photos back from a flip that's about to hit the market on this weekend. And so it was like really cool. We got the photos and we got the video. And so we're like going through the photos, you know, what we like, what we don't like. And so this is like the exciting part, like the HGTV part to like house flipping that everybody sees the end result. But it's cool because like this is one of those great days where it's like we're the open house. So yeah, it just depends on the day. It could be anything.
No, I love that. And I wanted to mention before we get started on this interview is just how we met, first of all. I feel like people should be aware of
Yeah.
how you and I really got connected. And it was through the Wealth Summit in Baltimore a few weeks ago. We were sitting next to each other during this panel interview, and we just got started talking, and you mentioned just like a little piece of what you do with the Lola Capital Group. And then I was like, hey, I have a podcast, and I think stars were aligned. And so I feel like, people that are listening to this show that are trying to start a business, trying to grow a business, it's really about your network and the power of opening your
Yes.
mouth and talking to people, not just sliding through somebody's DMs or messaging them on an email, but really like getting out there in the community and talking. And so I can't tell you how excited I've been to sit down with you for this interview, because it's long anticipated. I also, I have been in the market for a while of like home ownership, but have had this conception, like many people that are going to be listening to this episode, of like, can I afford a home? And so really thankful for you and for what you're doing for the community. And so just excited to get started.
No, and I'm thankful for this platform and for making the space. And to your point, I am all about organic, authentic connections, and I'm grateful for the Wealth Summit and just making that space for people who are, entrepreneurs and business leaders. And it was cool. Just the vibe was there, and just as far as like what we were doing and what the platform you had. So yeah, I've been looking forward to this too as well. And, okay.
All right. So before we get started, I love to play rapid fire with my guests, kind of warm them up a little bit, but also get to know you and a little more about your business
Nice.
and things going on. So I want to play this game with you. Would you be willing?
I'm down, totally down. Let's do it.
Okay. Okay, awesome. All right, let's do this. Okay, so what's the best advice that you've ever gotten about investing in real estate?
Get a mentor.
Okay. Um, what's one mistake a new
Oh, I'm sorry.
investor
Was my
should...
answer supposed to be short? Is what? Sorry.
No. Yeah, no, you're actually the best rapid fire person I've
Oh,
ever had,
okay.
because like usually people like go on and on,
I was
but
I was quick with it.
no. Yeah,
Yeah,
you're quick
I
with
was
it.
like
No,
trying
it's
to be quick.
perfect.
Yep,
That's
three
no,
to five
that's
words.
what we
Okay.
want.
Yep.
Okay, so what's one mistake a new investor should avoid?
Uh, don't get contractors off social media without qualifying them.
People do that?
Yes, they do it all the time. You're looking at a person that did it for our first
Oh
flip.
my gosh.
Yeah, you
Okay.
get a contractor off of social media, and you don't qualify them. Like, you don't go to their job site, you don't check on their past experience, you don't do referrals. That is a bad idea, and a lot of investors do that. And unfortunately, there are a lot of people who are not on the up and up out here. So yeah.
Okay. No, this is good for anyone that's listening. Okay, favorite Baltimore neighborhood to invest in?
Ooh, Broadway East. Broadway East, best in neighborhood to invest in. We are biased because we have over a dozen properties in Broadway East right now that is in our pipeline. But yes, Broadway East, cute neighborhood, East Baltimore, not far from Hopkins. Very good walkable neighborhoods, and just a lot of investment is happening in Broadway East. Yep.
Okay, awesome. I love that. And that's I think I told you this, but I live in Washington D.C. So Baltimore and D.C. are like two like rival cities. So like I am not familiar with Broadway East. So I think I learned something today.
Yeah.
Okay. So what's one word to describe the spirit of Baltimore?
Resilient.
I love that. Do you want to dive
Absolutely
deeper?
resilient. Yeah. The people I meet in Baltimore have learned. And again, I have much appreciation coming from St. Louis and my wife being from St. Louis. But the people in Baltimore have a deep resilience in regards to that grit, that they've had to make a lot with very little for so long. They've had to go without, and there's just a certain level of they're going to get it done. At the same time, they're still some of the greatest, most hospitable, down to earth honest people. Hence the charm, right? The charm city, and that balance of like both gritty, but at the same time, I'm gonna laugh through whatever I'm going through. I have nothing but great experience with the people that we've met and worked with in Baltimore. So, yeah,
I love that. And my last question is, what is one thing you wish more people understood about Baltimore real estate?
that this is literally the best time in decades to be investing in Baltimore for several reasons. The mayor, Brandon Scott, the governor, Governor Wes Moore, are all aligned in the initiative to reduce vacancies. Um, it is also a great time where population's up, crime is down, the stats are there. There's this housing crisis that is happening where we need more affordable homes, and
Mm-hmm.
Baltimore has a lot of inventory.
Mm-hmm.
And if investors do things and do things the right way in regards to how they go about it, it could be a game changer as far as wealth generation.
I loved your answer, and I think that is the perfect segue into this episode. And so, thank you for playing with me. Thank you for
Yeah,
playing the
yeah,
rapid
yeah.
fire. Your answers were
I'm trying to be as rapid
superb.
as possible and not. Yeah.
No, no, you were great, and I think it's a great takeaway for what we're about to get into. But I want to talk to you a little bit about your background first. You mentioned that you're from St. Louis, and being here in the DMV, you find that there are a lot of transplants. A lot of people move here for work, so I'm making the assumption that you moved to Baltimore for work. I want you to share your background, though. Like, how did you end up in
Yeah.
Baltimore?
Yeah. So background is engineering, project management, construction. Um, was doing that in the Midwest for the last 15 plus years, and had a job opportunity come up at Howard University. And not a lot of people know this, but at every campus, there's someone who always helps renovate, build, or manage projects around campus. So a lot of times, parents will see or students will see like, oh, there's construction detour and there's all this stuff happening around campus. Well, the person that
Right.
manages that is the project manager, and that was my role. So I was the one
Cool.
probably giving people most headaches on campus
Yeah.
with a lot of the job site stuff. But yeah, I took a job at Howard back in 2018 and never looked back. Worked at some other universities, Georgetown, Hopkins, and yeah, I've been out here ever since. So it's been a little bit over 7 years. Yeah, a little bit over
So,
7 years.
so for the listeners, just to get a glimpse of like what your day to day looked like, you were responsible as the project manager for the new development happening on these campuses,
Not always new. Sometimes new development. Sometimes campus
renovations.
renovations. Yeah,
Okay.
major renovations. A lot of times campuses have a lot of old buildings,
Mm.
that need a lot of repair. So it would be major renovations and both new development too.
Did you always know that you wanted to be in construction?
I always knew I wanted to be in construction. However, this particular role of like a owner's rep slash project management, I didn't even know what that was
Yeah.
until early college years. So yeah, as far as like the title, had no idea, but as far as like the thing of construction and building things, yeah, I always kind of knew.
Okay, and so then you you were working here in Washington D.C., where I'm based at Howard University, which is actually right up the street from me. Where did the transition from like the engineering, the construction, where did real estate come into play?
Yeah, so my wife and I, we got married in 2019, and both of us, during the pandemic, we were, in the house like everybody else.
Yep.
We saved up some money while we were there and said, let's get our first home. And so we built our first home from the ground up out in Upper Marlboro, and immediately just like this gratifying feeling of home ownership and the great sense of pride of having your own space, your own backyard. We were like, this is amazing. Like this is great. Like real estate is good, right? To have your own.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, well, hey, like how can we start investing and give people this same experience, right? Like we want to do more of this. right? We want to own more real estate. So that's kind of how the spark started, I would say, probably like around 2020 or so. Yeah.
Okay. I want to back up a little bit before we get into how you and your wife bought property and then it kind of like lended itself into helping others do the same. We were talking before this interview, and you mentioned that you bought your first house around 24. Where?
Yeah, that was the yeah when I was single back in St. Louis. I was 24 years old, and I bought it in the year 2007.
Hmm.
Um, and it was a loft. It was a condo, one bedroom, one bath, and it was a horrible idea. It was a
Why?
horrible idea, for a couple of reasons. So one, I think like any other college student or recent college grad, I was hearing everybody say the same thing. Oh, buy your first house, buy your first house, buy your first house. And I don't really think it translated that you should probably make sure whatever your first house that you buy, that it's also going to be a sellable house and that you could build equity into it.
Right.
So being that I love the loft and the whole loft movement was a thing at the time in St. Louis, and I wasn't too far from the Arch, and I wasn't too far from the Bush Stadium where the Cardinals play.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, cool, I'm gonna buy a loft, and I bought a
Mm.
one bedroom, one bath loft, 907 square feet. And yeah, it wasn't much equity that you could get out of that because there's only one buyer, right? There's
Yeah.
only a single person can buy that, maybe a couple, with no kids, and there was no appreciation. And then on top of that, we went into a recession the very next year, and
Mm.
everything just kind of bottomed. Yeah. So
What's
good
yeah.
intention, just bad, investment as far as to put it in. Yeah.
It sounds like bad investment. I know that condos are kind of notoriously hard to resell. Even here in Washington D.C., I mean, you would think that with all the transplants that come into the city, like you could get a condo and then rent it out, right? But like to then sell it is sort of hard because no one really wants to. Condos are like a very unique concept. So
Yeah.
like you mentioned, bad investment, but then you also are talking about going into 2007, 2008, where there was a recession. So timing also seems like an issue too. I want to talk to you about so. First, before I get into just like what buying a home looks like nowadays, which is seems like sort of the same thing you were experiencing back in the day for some people at least.
Yeah.
What did you learn from that experience that you then used as a lesson when your wife and when you and your wife bought your first home together?
Yeah, no, I think the first thing is, you want to save up as much as you can, and I know that always sounds easier said than done, but you really want to come to the closing table, at least with some cash, right? You want to have a little bit, so that you close and have a decent amount on your mortgage. That was one thing early on, that I learned that, I didn't have much, right out of college with my first job. Now the great thing about it today, particularly in Baltimore, there are a ton of first-time home buyer grants.
Yeah.
There's a ton of first-time home buyer programs, and I think there's a lot of initiatives out there to get people in. But at that time, it wasn't too many, in '07, '08. So I was just like, all right, maybe I can get the FHA, bring I think it was like 3% or 3.5% or something like that to the
Yeah.
table. But I would say, yeah, have some cash on you, definitely lesson learned, and then also get something where you can see adding value to it. So your first home does not have to be your dream home. It
Yeah.
could be your starter home, right? And if you get in there on the walkthrough and the paint is not your favorite paint color, don't be upset
Okay.
because you can always repaint. If the floor is beat up, you can always replace the floor. Now, I think if there's some structural issues there, stay clear,
Yeah.
But if there's cosmetic things and you can put some, sweat equity into it and add value to the property, go for it. I think that's something that looking back at things, I would have probably looked for something that was a little bit of a fixer-upper, but not like I say a full gut renovation, but a little bit of a fixer-upper. Yeah.
I love your transparency, and I also love the lessons that you learn, and then the tips that you're giving people that are out there that are in the market looking for homes. And I think, I have a lot of peers that are in the market right now their dream is to have a home. And so everywhere you look, I think I was talking to you the last time we spoke, and I said I work in media, and all the stories we would do were about, millennials and Gen Zs not being able to afford the homes, and the parents are like, you should be going out and buying a house, and it's like, with what money, right? What money? Yeah. And so before this interview, I was doing a little bit of research, and I was actually reading this article in Fortune magazine, and I just want to share a few statistics or what they said in this article that I found interesting. But it said, according to Fortune magazine, mortgage rates are still hovering near 7%, and Americans need to make six figures in order to afford a median priced home, which is currently more than $422,000, according to the National Association of Realtors. And then they said some other things, but to put it in perspective, the number of first-time home buyers in 2004 was nearly 3.2 million, according to the NAR data shared with Fortune. And by 2024, that number had plummeted to just 1.14 million.
Wow.
That's a lot, right? Like that, I don't know. And to me, it makes sense. I mean, I live in DC. There's no way I can afford a home in DC. And so this kind of lends itself into, why should people move to Baltimore?
Amber, I mean, you really just said it. I mean, you made my case for me right there with the stats. I mean, it's so much more affordable. I mean, let's talk about it, right? Less than 300K, between 225 and $300,000, you could get a 4-bedroom, 4-bath, 1,800 square feet, single family row home in East Baltimore. And we have Lola Capital Group has brought several of those to the market, where we flip them, modern finishes, granite countertops, stainless steel, all the things that you see on HGTV that would somehow be, a little bit out of reach, not even a little bit, a lot of out of reach in the DC market, like 800K, $1 million home. But Baltimore has them, sure, they're neighborhoods that are on the way up, and they're neighborhoods that are still climbing, but still safe, still walkable. And I'm just such a big component for young professionals having home ownership, that my wife and I just think that Baltimore really is the best solution, when it comes to home ownership in this area, area.
Coming up, the current state of home ownership and how Baltimore is going through a real estate renaissance. All right, guys, have you ever wondered what it's like to enjoy a luxury cigar experience on wheels? Meet the Infinity Mobile Cigar Lounge. Founded by Tara and Quincy Tucker, this isn't your average cigar lounge. It's a 28-foot trailer transformed into a luxury haven, complete with TVs, a humidifier, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, music, and a vibe that's simply unmatched. Whether you're hosting a wedding, corporate event, or just a backyard gathering, Infinity Mobile Cigar Lounge brings the party to you. With top-notch customer service and a selection of cigars that cater to every palate, it's an experience you won't forget. Support a business that's all about family, community, and creating unforgettable moments. Visit infinitymobilecigar.com to book your event today. Infinity Mobile Cigar Lounge. Book now and elevate your next event. And I want to make mention, and I want your help with this, diving and really painting the picture for the people that are listening. But Baltimore is going through sort of a quiet real estate renaissance right now. Right. Like, crime in the city is down, population is up. And to your point, these first-time homes that people can buy are affordable. Like you said, 250 to 300K. And we're talking like 4-bedroom homes. Like, these are like, this is kind of like a landmine in a way. Can you tell me about, talk to me about like the vacant homes in Baltimore, and also speak more about this real estate renaissance we're going through?
Yeah. So I think one of the things people miss, when things are a quiet renaissance, there's not a huge gold rush or a huge, publicity around it, just because we have so many different rehabbers and different other great organizations that are doing the work and have been doing the work. Um,
Hmm.
and there's really, I'll say this: there's really nothing super super sexy about real estate when you're buying a vacant, fixing it up, and then you sell it. Nobody comes out with the camera crew. Nobody comes out, with the ribbon cutting.
Right.
But there's so much value in that. And I'll just say our model. So, our model is we're finding properties at the auction, through tax sale, through off-market deals, and we're getting them for a very affordable price, somewhere, south of 300K. Sorry, not south 300K, south of 30K, right? And we're
Mm-hmm.
putting about 140, $150,000 into them. So as an investment company, we'll have 170 or so thousand dollars into the deal. So now, in order to be profitable, I don't have to charge you 500K. In order to be profitable, I don't have to charge you 350. I can charge you 250 as a rehabber, as an investment company, and still make enough profit margin to do our operations and then roll over to the next deal. And I think that's the aha moment in it, right? Where you have such a low buy-in on the purchase price that you don't have to gouge the buyer into the 400s and the 500s in order for them to have a good
Right.
product. In addition to that, the areas that they're in is that you get incentives for taking a house from a vacant to an occupied home. So there's many
Mm-hmm.
city programs, value to vacants, programs where you'll get 10K at the closing table. Live near your work for, I think that's another like 15 to $17,000 or so that they'll put towards your down payment assistant. So just think about, the house is 250. By the time you get to the closing table, you could really be looking at almost a 210, $200,000 home, and
Yeah.
now you're definitely paying a mortgage that's way less than your rent, like way less than rent. And I think
Yeah.
that's the quiet part, that there are young professionals that have already caught on, that are grabbing that equity now, and in a
Yeah.
couple of years, the house that's 250 is going to be 350, and they're going to have about 50 to 75K of equity, and they're going to be able to say, you know what, I'll sell, and maybe they'll move back to DC. I don't know. Maybe they'll stay in Baltimore, but they'll be able to build equity and start to build a legacy. And I think that's the exciting part, right? That's the renaissance, right? That there's something
Yeah.
happening. It's going to better the city. It's bettering the tax base for the city of Baltimore, and it's just creating a lot more exciting things. And on top of all of that, Baltimore has way better food too. So that's why people should move to Baltimore. It's way better food.
Well, I won't argue with you on that. I love Baltimore's food.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
so you won't hear
Way
that
better
from
food.
me.
Yeah, I agree.
I love this concept that you're talking about, because you're encouraging people to move into a city that where they can have all the bells and whistles, like having a city that is thriving in ways of food and things going on, but also being able to start families and afford their homes. And not only that, but then build this legacy and this generational wealth so that they get the return on their investment and some, to then maybe go out and invest in more properties, or have that for generations to come, for their children, and what have you. And I think of that about that a lot when we talk about generational wealth and how you can achieve that. And the traditional ways are through a 401k, through a Roth, through like life insurance policies, your HSAs, stocks, all of the things. But can you just really drive home why investing in a property or like land is so important to the overall generational wealth?
Yeah. I've read somewhere, or someone shared this on the reel. They're not making any more land. They're not making any more real estate. So to have a piece of real estate, I mean, that's so valuable, and it's always been the way in our country that people have begun to obviously accumulate wealth. The sad part is that people, black and brown people, have been kept out of those places due to redlining, have been kept out
Yes.
of the opportunity to be able to buy and grow wealth. And so now here is this opportunity where we can shift the narrative and shift the wealth gap, and begin to have a little bit more by getting in early in a city that has a nice amount of inventory. as far as vacant, put money into it, and then be able to have equity of our own. And so I think that's the real reason why real estate, because you're not they're not making any more of it. And honestly, everybody's got to have a place to live. It's not that's not going anywhere anytime soon.
Stay tuned. The aha moment that launched the Lola Capital Group. Hey y'all, I want to tell you about Liquid Intrusion Brewing Company, Prince George's County's first Black-owned brewery, founded by husband and wife duo Jasmine and Andrew Dill. What began as a home project during the pandemic quickly turned into a mission to bring more diversity, flavor, and representation to the craft beer industry. Liquid Intrusion is bringing a whole new idea to craft beer with their bold, flavorful brews like the Maverick, a tribute to Governor Wes Moore, Saison du Zest, and the African Queen and her Seven Seas IPA. You can find all of their beers in local grocery stores and beer distributors in the DMV by going onto their website. You can also listen to their episode on a Bright Idea podcast anywhere that podcasts are available to hear more about their story. May the liquid always prevail. So take me to the conversation where you and your wife are sitting down after purchasing your home, and you find that there's this opportunity in Baltimore to buy and flip these homes at an affordable price. What was that conversation, and what was that sort of aha moment that led to, okay, we're going to start Lola Capital Group?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so I think the first thing is that my wife said, hey, when we bought our home, we had a lot of equity in our primary home here, right? So she said we should do something called a HELOC. Now, I did not know what a HELOC was at the time. I didn't know the concept. Yeah, and I'll bring it. Yeah,
neither do the listeners, so let us know.
Absolutely. No, here we go. So just like me, I was like, okay, what's a HELOC? It's a home equity line of credit. It is the equity in your home. The bank lets you take a line of credit against that equity and spend it however you like. That's that's the short of it. So if you bought a home for $200,000 and it's currently worth 400,000 in your neighborhood because of the comps that sell, you got 200K worth of equity. They'll let you take up to a certain percentage of that, just depending on the bank and other stipulations, right? We were able to take a nice little bit of that out, and that's how we started with buying our first triplex. So we started with the rentals on the west side of Baltimore. We bought 2 triplexes, and one was already done. One was turnkey, move right in, place the tenants, and then the other one was the flip, or should I say the fixer-upper, where we had to go ahead and start to do some work on it in order to really get the value out of it. That is when we started seeing the value of like, oh, if we bought this property at $100,000 and we're putting 200K into it, this triplex is now really worth $450,000, And
Wow.
So to see that great value in it, that's where we just saw the opportunity in being able to take some risk, calculated risk, but take some risk into the Baltimore real estate market. And that was just our rentals, before we got over into the flips. Yeah.
So talk to me about your mission and why you thought it was important to not just gatekeep this information that you and your wife discovered, but to share it with the community.
For the very reason that I didn't know what a HELOC was, I don't want other people to go around without, right? To go without that education piece. So we opened up a lot of the times with our investors in our group. We do walkthroughs. We have what I call like the outdoor classroom, and we'll talk through, hey, this is how we look for property. This is what we look for. We don't go on blocks by ourselves. I look for other rehabbers, right? When I'm going to do a rehab, why would I start on a block where there's no activity at all? I want to kind of follow the trend and build upon other comps. How do you pull a comp? If I'm 2 miles away, does that comp apply in Baltimore? It doesn't, because Baltimore is a block by block. So you want to pull your comps by the neighborhood. So those are things that have been shared with us, and those are things that we pass on. And we are, as far as gatekeeping information, I do think, yeah, there are some people that kind of keep a lot of things close to the chest, but like when it comes to like investing and the knowledge of it and the power of it, now we're open book with our experiences because it's only going to
I
help the
love that.
community. Yeah.
No, absolutely. And I think that we can all help each other, especially, as black and brown people, where a lot of this is
Absolutely.
a huge knowledge gap because other communities are doing this. We see it every day. This is our opportunity to get in on that pie. So I want to talk to you about your target audience. So you mentioned two groups of people: young families looking to own a home that have been priced out of DC, for example, and then investors looking to grow their wealth. Talk to me about those two groups, and then is there ever any overlap where like those two groups work together?
No, no, no. That's a great question, and I didn't want to miss your question about our mission. Our mission is
No, please.
eradicate vacancies, create affordable housing, and then build generational wealth opportunities. When we do those three things, that's when Lola Capital wins, right? When we
Yeah.
eradicate the vacants on the block, we create affordable housing, and there's generational wealth created. That's our wins. And I think for the two groups, there's two people that we look for. Our buyer that we look for is the young professional, growing family, um, looking to looking to go ahead and expand on just their career. So they could be in the 20 something, 30 something, even upwards, to 50s. We were watching the HGTV show the other week, and it was a woman who was looking specifically for property in Baltimore in the 300K budget. And I was like, oh my gosh, this is like our client. Like this is like this is somebody that fits our profile. But that's what we're looking for as far as our buyer. Our investor that partners with us to help fund these deals, that investor is someone who has cash or capital, and it's sitting right now. It's just sitting in your high yield savings account. You're not getting much interest on it. Maybe 3 or 4%. You have it in a CD. Maybe you even have it in a self-directed IRA.
Mm-hmm.
But that's someone who says, you know what, I want to put my capital to work and I want to be able to get a return and be able to grow my wealth a little bit, faster, to be honest. And then at the same time, make an impact on the community. And that's why we call it impact investing, right? Because
Yeah.
you're impacting the community with your investment, but at the same time, you're also impacting your wealth and the generation that's coming from it by being able to invest.
What does the process of working with your company look like? So, like, how long does it take to do a flip and or purchase a home?
Yeah. So typically, we like to keep our investor relationships at least a year. So we typically say, hey, hang out with us for at least 12 months. Even though the process to purchase, renovate, and flip a home for our operations team is around 6 months, 6 to 7 months. We typically tell our investors, give us a year, at least with your capital. Right now, we're even looking to expand that where we're asking, investors to partner with us across our 3-year vision that we're having
Mm-hmm.
for the city of Baltimore. But at least no less than a year, is what we look for.
What can like a return look like for somebody doing a flip?
Yeah, yeah. So, it really depends on the investment amount because we are a SEC fund, and I'll share what that is. We're regulated by the Security Exchange Commission. And so that's the referee that basically regulates all capital raising, all money raising funds. So they make sure that people are doing all the right things. So
Mm-hmm.
because we have our SEC fund, they require that the folks that we raise money from are what they call accredited investors, which was like another
Okay.
one of those words. I was like, well, what does that mean, right? It's like I had
Yeah.
to kind of educate myself on that. So just real quick, so an accredited investor is, which is also an educated investor. An accredited investor is someone who makes over $200,000 as a single, or if they're
Okay.
married, they make over 300K, or they have $1 million worth of net worth outside of their home. And that's not anything that Cornelius and Ellena came up with. It's what they require for the SEC. But once that person's verified, then they can invest in our fund. And typically we start with our returns in the range of like 8% up to 12%.
Okay.
That's typically the range. Now we did just finish up a introduction kind of offertory period where we were doing a raise where we finished a little bit right at $500,000 over 30 investors. And so we were happy to complete that, and we were given a lot more generous returns during that time as well, because we really wanted to just kind of get into this getting to know you phase of our fund. But yeah, we were very blessed to hit the $500,000 mark.
Yeah. No, I love that. I was wondering too, for the people that aren't accredited investors, are there still ways that they can participate or support what you're doing?
So we have absolutely. So we have a strategic partner path, and that's someone where there's no salary requirements. There's no particular net worth that you have to have. We just make it very clear to them that, hey, it's going to be protected by notarized promissory note, and it's going to be protected by being on the insurance notification of the property. So you won't have the SEC referee oversight, but you still will be protected as, insurance notification on the property in the event of like a fire or water damage or, theft or vandalism. You'll get notified as the investor if something were to happen to the asset that you invested in. Yeah.
I love that. Earlier in the conversation, you were talking about don't hire a contractor off of social media. Like, really do your research. I was wondering, like, how do you maintain transparency and trust with your investors, especially given that the community impact is such a big part of your mission?
Yeah. No, it's a great question. So the transparency comes, I think, one, we try to over communicate. We over communicate with our investors via our newsletter. We have our director of investor relations. So we have a point person who is assigned, Sarah Saeed. She's assigned to keeping in contact with our investor groups, just giving them a phone call or a text, sending updated photos. We also, like I said, we have the walkthroughs where we bring them on site. They can get it. But that's really how we keep them in touch and how we build more trust. And we've had a lot of investors who've done deals with us already. They've gotten returns, and then they're like, let's do the next deal. Let's do another one together, And I think people are always going to repeat business when you do business the right way. So, yeah.
What have been some success stories that you've had with investors or home buyers so far?
And so what was really cool, a good buddy of mine, his mom, good buddy of mine's best friend, his mom, who didn't know me from anybody, she reached out, and I reached out to her, and I was like, hey, I heard you're interested in investing via text message, right? We had never met, but my buddy was like, oh, yeah, he's doing a lot of things in Baltimore, doing these flips, like, check him out. Via text message, never had a phone call. She ends up investing in our company, right?
Wow.
We start the flip. We, in full transparency, we hit some delays, but we also had some reserves. So we went ahead and paid back her investment and the return that she got, right? So then she was like, oh my God, this is great. So then she came back with her sister and her best friend, and they came back for 5 times larger than her first investment. And then we did a second one together. And so now, like, we're in the middle of our second deal, and then she came back again to do a third deal at this other time with more family and friends. And it literally just warms our heart because it just means we're doing something right, in regards to how we do business and how we are transparent with our investors. And we try to make sure that we're giving them the utmost service and hospitality, when it comes to just keeping them updated. And I think in return, a referral to me is the best thing, right? If someone's like, oh yeah, work with Cornelius and Ellena, like, work with them. Like, they're the people to work with in Baltimore. That humbles and we appreciate it, so that's one of our greatest success stories. Yeah.
No, that's amazing. That's an amazing success story, and it really does show the power of your network too, and in the fact that, going back to that transparency and trust. I mean, credibility is everything, and so I love that story. So thank you for sharing. I do want to get into a bit of the on the topic of transparency, what has been the biggest barrier to trying to restore like Baltimore's vacant properties?
The blessing and the curse of flipping in Baltimore is that they don't have all the resources to keep up with the speed of the investment community.
Okay. Wow.
So we have acquired, just in one neighborhood, we have over a dozen properties, within our company. Some of those properties we can't start work on yet because there's years of liens and violations on them, which
Yeah.
it's kind of like the city is owes the city, to say the least. It's like the grass is overgrown, so the city finds the city, right? And so
Hmm.
now it's a process, and we understand like a part of it's like a staffing, issue. Part of it's just they're overwhelmed, and there could be a lot of different things going on, but. That is one of the greatest things that kind of holds up the process. That
Yeah.
there's some stuff that we have right now that's like sitting on the shelf, and we would love to get it going so that we could renovate it, make it affordable housing, give investors a return, and give it to someone who deserves it, or sell it to someone who deserves it.
Yeah.
But we can't do that. Our team can't do our part until we go through a little bit of the red tape around things. But I think they're actively working on that. I definitely think Mayor
Yeah.
Brandon is focused on expediting that process, and the staff that he has. It just takes time, and you have to build that into your timeline, and then be
Yeah.
transparent with your investors about some of the hurdles so that they see it as a partnership, and they're not asking like, well, hey, what happened? Like, why
Right.
haven't we started work? Like, I don't even know what voice that is that I'm using. But anyhow,
No, I
but
mean, I
it's
get
like
it.
that's
Yeah.
the upset investor voice. It's like, what's going on? Like that's the upset investor voice. But yeah, I think that is the biggest hurdle to flipping.
Yeah, and I think that that's such a good point to point out is that other cities like DC, for example, has been renovating and flipping for a long time. So
Hmm.
there is the infrastructure. There are also the stakeholders and the local residents that are very aware, and so that I can see how a project could move along a little quicker than what's happening in Baltimore. But I think that it all takes time, and it sounds like with the mayor and the governor who are kind of backing this plan that something should be changing soon. Do you ever get to like meet with those types of stakeholders, like the mayor, Governor Westmore, about what your plan is?
We have not directly. We do try to make sure that we are keeping up to date with the city initiatives, but we have not directly. There are some amazing other organizations that I'll shout out. Shout out to Charm City Buyers, who's been doing this work in Baltimore for decades, and I am both my wife and I are big, big supporters of Charm City Buyers and just the amazing work that they've done. They definitely are always boots on the grounds, knowing the updates. So we kind of glean a lot from some of the updates and initiatives that they have shared over time. And so I just think it's so much actively going on. You definitely have to have someone as a advocate, right? And someone that's like has that place at the seat, and they definitely do with Charm City Buyers.
No, I love that, and thank you for the shout outs. Let's talk about legacy and lessons real quick. So we've talked a lot about legacy and a lasting impact. I was just wondering, like, how do you measure success of Lola Capital Group beyond just the numbers of homes flipped or the dollars earned?
Amazing question. My wife and I, so we had our 2026 strategy session yesterday where we spent the entire day just planning out what do we want our strategy to be for Lola Capital Group for next year. And for us, success looks like efficiency and a peaceful process that we're able to acquire efficiently, hand it off to our operations team, that the deal is funded by our capital team, and that
Mm-hmm.
we can get the product. get the inventory in front of the right people as soon as possible. And we said when we do that efficiently, we win, right? When I'll share with you the flip that we did in the North Milton block. When this hit the market, it stayed on there for 4 days, and a Baltimore police officer who would none other would be able to afford a house in many other places in Maryland was able to buy this home off the market, and it was his first home. It was a first time home buyer.
Wow.
That that that's when we won, right? Yes, our investors made a nice percentage on the deal. Yes, we made money on the deal at the table, but seeing the photo of him in front of his home, seeing that he took a chance on the block too because he moved in and there was an occupied on one side and a vacant on the other. So then we bought the vacant next door and we started renovating that and our
Yeah.
team started working on that. That was the win, right? That was the like, okay, this is working. So I think it's
Yeah.
when those factors happen, that's when we feel that that's when we know that there's success. Yes.
That's beautiful. It is. It's about, for the people who never thought in a million years, or they may be the first generation home buyer in their families. Like that's really the driving force, is like placing people into homes and
Yeah.
giving them like the dream that they always wanted. I really love that answer. For the listeners who want to invest in real estate with purpose, what's one piece of advice you'd like to give them to start?
Yeah, so anytime you're investing in real estate or evaluating a deal, there's three things you really need to look for. One, how's my money going to be protected, right? Like, what do they have in place? Is there going to be a notarized promissory note? Is it going to follow state laws and regulations around investing money? Two, if something happens to it, hey, am I on the insurance of the property? How will I be notified? Who's going to make sure the property doesn't have catch fire, or be able to make sure that you don't have squatters or things like that. All those kind of like fears. You want to make sure that someone's going to protect your investment in that
Yeah.
way, and then you want to look at the experience of the team, right? So then, like, hey, how many flips has this team done? Our team has done over 130 flips in Baltimore. The experience there, the skill set is there, the knowledge is there to
Yeah.
be able to execute and move things forward. But you want to look at that, the experience. How's my money going to be protected? And then when am I going to get my money back? I'll just add a forward. When am I going to get my money back? Like, is it 12 months? Is it 18
Yeah.
months? Looking for a long-term partnership? I know people who've done syndication real estate deals, and they're like 5 years all in, and they haven't seen a check. It's like year three, and they're like, hey, we might see a check this year. And I'm like, that just sounds,
Mm,
uneasy, right? It doesn't sound like the best investment. But you want to look for those. How's my investment going to be secured? What's the experience of the team? And then, hey, what's the, returns, and when am I going to see a return?
Up next, building the next generation of investors. No, great tips, great tips. And so I feel like everyone listening right now should be taking note, because you don't want to go into it blind. It's a huge investment, and if you're prepared ahead of time and taking what the advice that you're giving, then you should be good. Um,
Yeah.
Transitioning into generational wealth, though, and I this is the part of the conversation that I am really excited to have with you, because we talked about it a little bit on our previous call, in our introduction call. You mentioned that you have a daughter. She's 15 years old, correct?
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
yeah. And so not only are you building these homes and flipping these homes for a community, but you are also, your wife and yourself are investors. What does generational wealth look like for her and her future? And do you talk to her about generational wealth?
Yeah. No, absolutely. So we, to simplify it, and I know it gets shared a lot with the word generational wealth, but I think for us, it just means that there's no strain. There's no, there's no constraint of what you want to do when you want to do it when you get to that place in life, right? So when you get to a wealthy state, there's just a level of freedom, you know? And I think, yes, there is a correlation of that to money and finances because in order to have that freedom, you got to have the resources behind it. But that's what we want for our daughter. We want our daughter to have that same freedom. So, I talked about the triplexes that we have in West Baltimore. If we just simply just had our tenants pay their rent for the next 20 years, she's 35. Those two triplexes alone, she could cash in for $1 million apiece, all paid off, money in her pocket. That's $2 million at 35. That, if any of our parents had given us at that stage, that's a game changer. Now I'm not worried about, hey, do I need to stay at this job, right? Like, do I really like it, or do I want to do something different? Like, it just starts giving you options, and I think that's what real generational wealth does. It just gives you options, you know? You're just able to get options on the things that you love to do, want to do, your passion. And so when we see her and we educate her and we try to take her down to the property and let her know, hey, here's how you got to maintain it. Here's, the assets that we own. These are all things that seeds that we're sowing so that when she does get to that stage in her life, she will, one, appreciate them because it's, you got to appreciate the things that you're given, but also understand that great sacrifice went into these so that she could be more comfortable. So I think that's the biggest thing. We want to make sure that she's comfortable, as all people do with their children. They want to give them just a little bit more than what they had. And but yeah, that's really our goal when we, acquired the properties that we did when we first started. We just wanted to be able to give those to her. So we see those like a 401k or like something that you just don't even touch. Like those just build an appreciation, the rent's being paid through the tenants, and then one day she'll just cash them in, and yeah, she'll be a pretty well off kid.
Yeah. Well, I commend you both as parents to have the forethought to give your daughter generational wealth and to be able to allow her to have freedom and have autonomy over her life and also pass down not just monetary but knowledge and the financial literacy that I don't think that a lot of us get, no matter what our demographics are. I don't think that we talk a lot about financial literacy and what that really means in the as it relates to generational wealth. But as you were talking, I'm thinking back to your story about the police officer who this was his very first time purchasing a home. And for him, who may have been that he may be the first person in his family to purchase a home, that's a game changer right there. So we should celebrate that. But then let's say he has a family. How is he passing on that information to his family? I was talking to my parents recently who my mom grew up in Jersey, and her parents left their home to 5 of her siblings. And now as my parents and her siblings are getting older, it's now time for my brother and sister and all of our cousins to be passed along the house. And so for my entire life, my uncles and my aunts have been like, this house will be yours one day, and like, this is generational wealth. But what does that actually mean? Like, who are, where did the taxes go? Who do we talk to at the bank?
Yeah.
What, how much is on the house in terms of mortgage? If the, because your house could be completely paid off, but if you're not paying your taxes, that house is no longer yours. So I just want to know, like, for parents that are out there that are like you and your wife that are investing in these properties so that your daughter can have generational wealth, so that she can have options, because that's the goal. What can parents talk to their children about in terms of financial literacy and generational wealth in a way that allows children to feel included in the decisions and also have a plan for their future?
Yeah, I definitely think teenagers and children learn by observation and just this sense of absorbing the information, but it has to be reoccurring. So, one thing that we try to share is share numbers, right? I think growing up, I didn't know what my parents' mortgage costs. I didn't know what a mortgage
Yeah.
was. I was like, we just live in this nice house. We enjoy all these nice things. Who knows how
Yeah.
much they pay, right? So I think the first thing, from a transparency standpoint, let them know, hey, this is how much we make. This is how much it takes to afford where we live. And then have them
Right.
understand the context of that. And then they may even say something like, that's not a lot of money. That's not a lot of money. Or they may say, oh, and they'll have a better appreciation for, the things that you give them. So I think transparency on numbers. I think also, constant education. Find a platform, that's going to be pumping information into them. Earn Your Leisure, amazing platform. EYL, InvestFest. I attended that back in August. Great platform to begin to learn those things. EYL University. I think also exposing them, taking them to things like the Wealth Summit where we met, like as a teenager,
Yeah.
hey, they should be there.
So true.
Just hearing those conversations. The earlier that we could start talking about money and start sharing things about money, we demystify the things around money and saving and investing that other races have been having these conversations for quite some time, and I think as long as we start talking about it
Right.
earlier, they become
Hmm.
more and more comfortable with it. But those are the things I think, yes, be transparent, get them to some level of education platform around it so that they can get comfortable with talking about money. Yeah.
No, that was great. Thank you so much, and thank you for having that conversation with me. I know that how taboo of a topic money is, but I think that if we start incorporating these sort of discussions into our dinner table discussions, or like you said, taking our kids to the wealth summits and things like this, I think it does demystify
Yes.
sort of the anxiousness that money has behind it. So I thank you for
Yeah.
engaging in that conversation. Okay, so looking ahead 5 to 10 years, like what's your vision for Lola Capital Group?
Yeah. So we think the greatest impact is just what I share as far as like the success stories. How many of these success stories of new homeowners, vacants that are no longer there, affordable homes, how many of these can we do from our operations, and how can we grow and do more? So our 3 year
Mm-hmm.
plan, and really just looking over these next 3 to 5 years is somewhere, north of, you know, 65, even upwards to 85 homes, being able to put a
Yeah.
dent, in the number of vacancies in the city of Baltimore. I think that's where it starts. I think as far as on the wealth generation side, our fund, the Baltimore Flip Fund, it is an offering of $5 million. We would love to have that fully funded. This year we were successful with raising $500,000. So I think, over the next, 2 to 3 years, having a full fund bless you, having a full fund
Thank you.
would be great. It would just allow us to be able to move faster on deals and be able to do more. And then I think growing our investor community, because there's something special when other people see that they're impacting and helping other people. Um, it's a great, just like tingling feeling when the investors come on site, they see the product that they helped produce. But then also when we share these success stories, that they see the people and the lives they impact. So I think that's when we'll win over these next 3 to 5 years. When we get up in that number of more success stories. Again, right now in our head, we were planning yesterday, if we're in north of 60, 65 homes over the next 3 years, that's great. Would love to hit the 100 mark, in the city of Baltimore, and would love to just have 100 success stories. I think as far as the number of lives that we impact, but definitely on the short term, yeah, definitely we're moving towards that direction.
I love that, and I love that in throughout this conversation you've talked about the goals that you and your wife have had, and I know we haven't really dove into what it's like working with a spouse, but you guys are creating something really amazing for an entire city. Like that's no easy task, and I just would love to know what it's like working together, and what it's been like seeing sort of this idea of Lola Capital Group grow into fruition.
Amazing. So I think working with your spouse, particularly in business, it is such a great um, how can I say this? It kind of checks you in this good way, right? Because there's been deals where I'm the business partner. If I see it, I'm running numbers. By the time we're to the end of the block, ooh, babe, let's buy it, right? Let's get it, you know? And my wife has this great way of asking questions that kind of check all the boxes that I would totally miss. Well, how are we gonna how does this work? And what
Yeah.
about the insurance? And what's the appraisal? And what are the other like I am more, man, let's just go, let's just do it, and we'll figure out along the way. And she's literally that framework. So I don't know how other partnerships work in other couples, but for us, that's our dynamic, and it has helped grow our business because we complement each other in that way. Then there's also sometimes on the flip, and she would say this where probably where she didn't want to take the risk. And I'll just use, for example, when we were starting to raise capital, we both were like, don't ask anybody for money. Like, do not ask anybody for money. And she didn't want to ask anybody for money. I was like, we're only going to be able to do like one deal a year if we're just using our money.
Yeah.
Um, and because it's always going to be tied up into stuff. And it happens to a lot of flippers now. They'll have like one deal a year that they're just flipping. And so I said, we're going to have to ask people. And we're going to have to shift our mindset from asking for money versus presenting people with an opportunity,
Yeah.
right? And so that was one time in our dynamic when I think I offered something that she probably was a little bit outside of her comfort zone. But then the win that we were talking about yesterday at our strategy meeting was that was a huge win for this year. Like we had never raised money before, a little bit before this year started from like close friends, but we raised $500,000 in a year for rookies, right? Who had never done this before.
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
we were both, we were both thankful for each other. So I think that's the great part about working in real estate with your partner, with your spouse. They check you, but they also compliment you and balance out all the things. Yeah. I would totally miss the mark too if I didn't like shout out that the work that my wife is doing complements our work as well. She's currently right now going to Morgan State, where she's getting her doctorate of public health. And some of the things that she's starting in her conversations around her dissertation is how does vacant properties, how does blight impact the public health of the community? And so, like, she has like this very analytical and community focused and like this grassroots sense of like, hey, it's
Yeah.
this greater picture that we're looking at. And my engineering brain, like, is just looking at, numbers, and she's thinking like holistically. And so it's such a compliment of the work that we're doing that it's kind of scary at times. So I was like, this must have always like been the plan, that God wanted us to be able to do this at this time in this season. But I think when you find the
No,
right
it
person, those compliments are there.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. What in like I said, the proof is there, and I love that she is taking a perspective of like of the bigger picture, and how you guys are just like pouring into this community, and you're not just coming in and buying a bunch of houses, but you're really considering the um, who Baltimore is at its core. And so I think it's just so nice to talk to you guys today, and I'm really excited to see where you go in the future. I would love the listeners to know like where can they find you, and lastly, if there's anything else that you would like to add that I haven't asked you already.
Yeah, no, I appreciate it. I think, connecting with us on Instagram, social media, they can find us at Lola Capital Group on Instagram. And I think also, too, we have our monthly newsletter that we send out that I'll share the link with you if you want to go ahead and share that with the group as well, how people can sign up for our newsletter. But that really has all of our like updates, as far as all the cool things that we're doing. We update our investors and potential investors, through those platforms. And yeah, I'm just thankful for this platform. Thankful for being able to just share our mission, and share our passion. And if anyone's interested in impacting the lives of people who are looking for affordable homes, and being able to reduce vacancy in the city of Baltimore, and at the same time they want to generate wealth and returns for themselves, then I ask them to definitely reach out to us at Lola Capital, and we'd love to partner with you and do our next flip with you.
Yes, and so we will have them do that. I will put all of your information in the description of this episode. But thank you so much for your time. I will say that this was a highly anticipated episode for me. I was really excited to sit down and talk to you today. You have great energy, and we met at the Wealth Summit, and so ever since then, I've been just so excited to tell your story. And there's so many people that I talk to on a day to day that are really just like, I want to own a home, but I don't believe I can. And you just kind of painted a picture for people to put them at ease that like it is possible. You just got to move to Baltimore. So
That's it.
thank
That's it.
you
That's
for
it.
your time.
Awesome.
Yes.
Thank you, Amber.
Move to
Yep, move to
Baltimore.
Baltimore.
Yes. Thank you
Awesome.
so much.
Thank you so much.
That's it for this week's episode of A Bright Idea podcast. Today's guest was Cornelius Weaver with the Lola Capital Group. If you would like to learn more information, you can go to their website at weibuildnow.com, or you can follow them on social media at Lola Capital Group. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. Your feedback helps us bring on more stories like the Lola Capital Group. Be sure to follow us on social media at A Bright Idea Podcast for updates. And if there's a topic or a guest you'd like to hear from next, drop us a message. If you would like to support the show directly, you can donate to our Cash App at A Bright Idea Podcast. This podcast was edited by Chris Kramer, and all social media was handled by my social media manager, Shekinah Henderson. Until next time, I'm Amber Key.